today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Abdullah Mason. Every time I've been tested, I've passed with flying colors. Abdullah Mason admits Sam Noakes will be the most dangerous opponent of his career so far. The hard-hitting English lightweight contender has won 88% of his bouts by way of knockout in 6 years as a pro. Shakur Stevenson, the unbeaten WBC lightweight champion, touted Noakes' power after they sparred earlier this year in London. Top Rank may be going through broadcast issues right now, but that's not stopping Abdullah Mason from getting his shot at the big time. This fight with Sam Noakes is for the newly vacated WBO title, left behind by then-champion Keyshawn Davis, who ended up dropping it so soon after he won it. Now it's on the line in Mason versus Noakes. Sam Noakes, the ring's number 8 lightweight contender, has demonstrated durability as well, earning a shot at the vacant WBO lightweight title. Mason is number 9 in the ring's top 10, considers Noakes exactly the type of fighter he needs to beat impressively to prove he is an elite lightweight. Cleveland's Mason, 19-0 with 17 KOs, and Maidstone's Noakes, 17-0 with 15 KOs, will fight for the WBO crown that was stripped from Keyshawn Davis for coming in 4.3 pounds overweight for a canceled title defense against Edwin De Los Santos 4 months ago. The 12-round bout between Mason and Noakes will be part of the Ring 4 Night of Champions, headlined by David Benavidez and Anthony Yarde. This is one of those fights where you're just going to test something out that's never been tested before, Mason stated on the most recent episode of Inside the Ring, co-hosted by Max Kellerman and Mike Coppinger, and every time that I've been tested, I passed with flying colors. Even in November, where I got caught with a shot, I came back and I got him out of there in that second round. So this is going to be another test on the table, and every test I ace. It solidifies me more and more into the sport of boxing. Abdullah Mason, Sam Noakes, they represent what could be the next cycle of champions the lightweight division sees. Them, Floyd Escofield, who's in line to fight for the WBA title as soon as Gervonta drops it. Raymond Muratalla, he's already there. He's already got his belt. The IBF title. The WBC title is still with Shakur Stevenson, who's supposed to be moving up in weight for his next fight against Teofimo Lopez, and we'll see if that materializes. Things are definitely shaking, rattling, and rolling in the lightweight division. A world championship fight is a huge step up, Mason said. So once I do this, this is kind of solidifying me in the sport as one of boxing's biggest up-and-coming names. Mason is a 4-1 favorite to defeat Noakes according to DraftKings. He nonetheless knows Noakes will force him to show dimensions to his game he has yet to unveil. I might have to bring some stuff out, Mason said, that I haven't had to bring out for the rest because he's a durable opponent, as everybody can see, and that's just what it is. I'm going to have to bring a little bit more smoke. Mason versus Noakes will be one of 4 title fights DAZN will stream as part of the Ring 4 Night of Champions. Phoenix's David Benavidez is scheduled to defend his WBC title against England's Anthony Yarde in what is the 12-round main event of a stacked card. And on it, Abdullah Mason will get his shot at the big time, his chance to become a bona fide world champion. And Abdullah Mason, you have an unbeaten up-and-comer that's not as volatile as a Keyshawn Davis and not as temperamental as a Shakur Stevenson or a Teofimo Lopez. Aside from his fan-friendly style and his boxing acumen, what stands out about Abdullah Mason is he seems a centered young man, level-headed. From the cycle after Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo and Gervonta, Abdullah Mason very much seems like the leader of the new school, at least for American fighters. And he's managing to stay busy and stay active in spite of Top Rank's broadcast issues, though you have to wonder, how much longer is it going to take Top Rank to find a new broadcast partner? And if they can't in a timely fashion in the coming calendar year, what does that mean for Abdullah? Rumor has it that Keyshawn Davis may be migrating from Top Rank over to Matchroom, where he got a start. Could the same thing happen to Abdullah if things don't move along for Top Rank? That would certainly help Eddie Hearn's plan for conquest in the U.S. market if he were able to land both Keyshawn and Abdullah theoretically.
Sure that he'd be happy to have him.
Though for now, Abdullah is set to return to action late next month on the undercard of Benavidez versus Yard, and I expect him to do the business. I expect him to get the job done and become WBO champion. It's just a question of how does he look? How does he win? Does he win in good fashion? We'll see. Elsewhere in the lightweight division, you may have heard that the IBF purse bid for Raymond Muratalla versus Andy Cruz lightweight title fight has been postponed to October 22nd, Wednesday of the coming week, at the request of both Matchroom and Top Rank, who are seeking more time to negotiate a deal.
What happened? The purse bid was postponed from its original date of October 16th. Why? Both promoters, Matchroom Boxing and Top Rank, asked for more time to finalize an agreement privately. The new date for the purse bid is the 22nd, giving them only days to reach a deal. But why haven't they reached one already?
Could be the money. It could be that Raymond Muratalla, the defending champion, maybe he wants more money. I mean, usually that's what the problem is in negotiations. It always goes back to the money, so maybe he wants more money. Sporting a professional record of 23 wins with no losses and no draws, 17 knockouts, it might be that Raymond Muratalla has to migrate over to the Matchroom side of things, at least momentarily, to satisfy this mandatory, because Top Rank doesn't have anywhere for him to fight.
They don't got a broadcast partner.
Simultaneously, they don't really want this to go to a purse bid, because if it does, Top Rank is in no position to win it. No broadcaster, no broadcast money, no money to put up for a purse bid. So it would seem that Matchroom has the upper hand in negotiations here. I expect that if a deal gets done and the fight happens, it will happen on the Matchroom side of things. Matchroom that promote amateur standout Andy Cruz, who sports an unblemished record of 6 wins with no losses and no draws, 3 knockouts, 3 times less as many fights, 3 times less as many rounds as Raymond Muratalla. But what Andy lacks in professional experience, he makes up for in talent. The amateur standout that defeated Keyshawn Davis how many times?
I think it was 5.
Last in action in June of this year opposite the Ring Japan Zone, Hironori Mishiro, who he stopped in the 5th round of a contest scheduled for 12. And before that, he fought in January at the top of the year against Omar Salcido. Would be wishful thinking to expect this fight between Raymond and Andy to take place before this year is out, but there is all of November and all of December, so we'll see. And what is an intriguing fight, intriguing because while Raymond has a lot more pro fights, more pro experience, and more rounds than Andy, Andy is a really well-schooled amateur.
Decorated amateur, talented professional, 6 fights into his pro career, and he's already set to fight for a title.
Against Raymond, who last saw action in May of this year opposite the ring Zaur Abdullah, who he decisioned in somewhat unimpressive fashion. When I first saw Raymond, I had him pegged as a pressure fighter and action fighter, but he's changed since then. He's moving more towards boxing.
Being more cerebral. Really, I haven't been impressed with Raymond for his last 3 fights. The Tevin Farmer fight, the Jesus Campos fight, and the more recent Zaur Abdullah fight. That Raymond really hasn't blown me away, but what he does have is a lot of fights, a lot of experience, more than Andy Cruz.
What does Raymond need to do to beat him and keep the red and gold title? I think he needs to stop trying to be cerebral. He's not going to win a boxing match against Andy, but he can wear him down and wear him out. Put him under more pressure than he's ever been under as a professional boxer. Since he doesn't have a lot of fights, he doesn't have a lot of experience. That is Raymond's best bet to keep that belt. Hit the gas and put the pressure on Andy.
How does Andy win?
By out-hustling Raymond Muratalla. Andy Cruz is the faster, more athletic fighter of the two. He has to use that to his advantage. Beat Raymond Muratalla to the punch and get out of the way.
Don't trade with him.
Don't try to. Don't try to fight fire with fire. Don't try to out-muscle him, out-hustle him, because you're lighter on your feet, you're faster, you're more agile, more athletic. I think punch for punch, Raymond has more power than Andy, but Andy has Raymond beat in other areas, and that's how he can win.
Cornered by Bozy Ennis, the father of Jaron Ennis, who's also training Jack Catterall now, fast developing his portfolio as a trainer in the sport of boxing. Andy Cruz is not your atypical Cuban boxer. He's not like Erislandy Lara. He's not like Rigo. He's not an economic, outside, safety-first fighter. No, he's not an outside cutie pie. He actually has a more fan-friendly style than those guys did. That Philly influence that he's getting from Bozy.
Raymond Muratalla is cornered by veteran trainer Robert Garcia, who has produced a lot, and I mean a lot, of world champions over the years. And that is not to be underestimated. That even if Raymond doesn't have the flashiest style, he does have a strong corner.
It's a fascinating fight, and I'm looking forward to it whenever they can get it done.
Why do you want to change the Muhammad Ali or abolish the Muhammad Ali Act that is intact to protect fighters? I'm a little bit concerned with what I saw from Dana, because I like Dana, and I don't want it to go like this for him. But I saw that interview, I was like, it's over. It's over before it's even started. I mean, how loud do you want to talk? Right? We've seen this before where the blood pressure starts going through the roof. You got just chill. It's only little old me that doesn't think big enough. You know? So just chill. We don't have to scream and shout. We don't have to lose our temper. The blood pressure doesn't have to go out of control. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. You know, we've seen the rumoured success with the Muhammad Ali Act. We know what that is. But we just keep doing what we're doing. And I like our spot right now.
Could I just ask you again, you posted on your story, I think you said, I don't want to misquote you, was it too angry too early?
Yeah.
Did you expect it to get to this level?
No. I expect Dana to go, oh, Eddie Hearn, you know, I like the guy, I'm looking forward to the battle. But all of a sudden, I just saw this anger and this tension and like, whoa. You know, on one hand, we're not a threat. And two, you've lost your shit already. We haven't even started yet. I mean, you haven't got a boxing product yet. And it started. So, listen, this is bread and butter to me. The difference between Dana and me is I've been in those battles for 15 years.
Eddie is right on that count that he's been immersed in a domestic battle with Frank Warren for ages, all before he even debuted in America. And when Matchroom debuted in America, they were immersed in even more battles with Top Rank, with the PBC, to a lesser extent with Golden Boy Promotions that shares a platform with Matchroom, but still, they are competitors.
Competition. Eddie Hearn has been immersed in it throughout.
Whereas Dana White hasn't. That's not to say that Dana White hasn't been successful. Of course, he has. But when you corner the market on something new and something fresh, a fledgling sport,
Dana hasn't really had to compete with anybody. There have been other fighting federations, like, say, Bellator,
who weren't ever any real competition for the UFC, and the same applies to the PFL, who came out in more recent years, but they're not real competition for the UFC either. That as far as mixed martial arts go, the UFC is the premier brand and the premier promotion, though in that way, Dana never had any real competition.
That's where boxing is different.
And that's where his entry into the boxing space is different from Eddie Hearn's. Eddie had to compete from the get-go, whereas Dana doesn't have to. So when Eddie asks, why specifically do they have to make these changes to the Ali Act, you're basically already answering your own question. It's so that Dana doesn't have to compete. He doesn't have to compete with you, or Top Rank, or Golden Boy, or the PBC, because he's operating on a different wavelength entirely.
That's why.
Well, there's been a lot of concern about dubious business practices and fighters being mistreated, underpaid, but I reiterate, Dana White's not stealing from anybody going through these channels. If anything, it highlights how they don't plan on stealing from anybody, but they do plan on keeping spending under control.
Well, that's a part of it.
If the question is, why do they have to make these amendments to the Ali Act, a part of it is to keep the spending under control, to keep all their ducks in order, as boxing in its current form does not make for a sustainable business. Now, I would not accuse Eddie Hearn of the same things I'd accuse Al Heyman of, or Oscar De La Hoya, several other promotional outfits in the sport of boxing, and their dubious business practices. Matchroom, for the most part, has a good reputation for paying their fighters on time.
I never heard nobody accuse Eddie or Matchroom of shorting them money.
And I never heard nobody accuse Matchroom or Eddie of stealing money from fighters.
But there are other guys that do. So this idea that the Ali Act as it is for the last 25 years has been this safeguard, this impregnable defense.
Bullshit.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Ali Act and all, fighters have still been getting jerked in America night and day. The Ali Act didn't change that, it just changed how they go about it.
But it still happens. So if Dana White's Zuffa Boxing is relying on these additions to the Ali Act, these amendments, to get it off the ground, it's not because he's planning on stealing from anybody. They just want to keep the spending under control, and maybe it needs to be. As stated, they want to be able to keep their fighters in line and in order like he does in the UFC, though a part of that...
I mean, it's not just the sustainable business stuff. Dana can't compete with Matchroom. He can't compete with the PBC, Top Rank, or Golden Boy.
So when you ask, why are they making these changes to the Muhammad Ali Act? It's so that Dana White doesn't have to. He doesn't have to compete with any of you to get this thing off the ground. The hazing that Eddie Hearn endured when breaking into the boxing space in America, Dana's not going to have to go through that because Dana doesn't have to work with all these other people to do his shows. It's all baked in, like a meatloaf.
What about the constant attacks to his character and his reputation as a businessman? Isn't that going to discourage fighters from signing to him?
Well, that's what some people in the boxing industry are hoping, though ultimately, it's all going to boil down to what he can offer these fighters, these B and C tier fighters. Constant gripes about Dana's business model at the UFC and how brand sponsorships and endorsements all go to the company and not the individual fighter, and how it might be the same thing at Zuffa Boxing. It might.
But the kind of boxers that Zuffa is looking to sign, they're not the kind of boxers that get brand sponsorships anyway, and big endorsements, those other arms of revenue that the top 2% of earners in boxing.
You know that most boxers don't have all that stuff, right? All those patches on their trunks and all those endorsements. So for them, it's a non-factor, and they might sign to Dana anyway.
They don't gotta worry about sanctioning fees.
Shit, I heard somewhere they don't have to worry about training expenses either because it's all baked in, like a meatloaf. So for those B and C tier fighters that decide to go with him, you never know. It might be good for them specifically.